way. And people are suspicious of what they don't understand and they don't have an experience of. And I apologize to all of you from my heart and soul for all that you've gone through and your families have gone through. And my hope is this conversation can spread other conversations to action, and it's just not a conversation. Now, hopefully people will be moved. And like I said, we got about 50 million people out there who will be watching this, and that's a momentum, just another step. We have to keep stacking every step. So thank you, Doc. Bishop T.D. Jakes, you're a force of nature, brother. I love you dearly. I love what your life is about. Many people probably don't know that you've not only, coached and counseled so many people through funerals and through this kind of pain, but also that you've also experienced it in your own family. If I remember correctly, it was your grandfather that was murdered, and while your grandmother was pregnant, if I remember right.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Give us your perspective on where we are, how we got here, and where we got to go. What has to be done?
It's funny you should mention my grandfather. I was sitting here thinking about him. My grandfather is
June 9th. He passed, and you were born on June 9th. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. They murdered him on June 9th, and I was born several years later on the day that he was murdered. And that's not unique. I mean, almost every Black person in America has a story like that. Runaways that we never found again. Part of our family fleeing in the middle of the night. Not sure where our cousins are, don't know what our last name really is. Our last names are a derivative of whoever owned us. And we're living in a contemporary society where they say all of that is long ago, we should forget it. Well, I don't even have a name because Jakes is German and clearly I'm not German. So every time I call my own name, I'm reminded of the fact that that slavery and has forever marked me. So you deal with 401 years of what I characterize as molestation. And I call it molestation because molestation is when someone in power takes advantage of someone without power. And that's what we're talking about today. Whether you're talking about the way the police act out on the street, or whether you're talking about the DAs, or whether you're talking about false autopsy reports, we're talking about how we handle power. I'd like to divide racism from injustice because they're often used interchangeably, but they're really not the same thing. Racism is a condition of the heart. It deals with how you feel about me. Injustice is an action, it's how you act toward me. Now, there are no legislations that can legislate how you feel about another person. If it were, we could legislate marriages back together. We could legislate all types of healing all over the world. There's not going to be any legislation made that eradicates all types of biases and racism. What that is going to take is the love of God in our hearts and the experience of interacting with people on a personal basis to subvert the way that we have been programmed to think about people based on superficial realities. That's the thing about racism. Though that's important and that really needs to be done, and we really need to work on that. What brings us all around this table and what makes us all have so much fraternity around this table is injustice. And we have it on every level. It was unjust that Sabrina Fulton would have her child snatched out of the world. It was unjust that Martin Luther King III grew up without Martin Luther King Jr. It was unjust. Over and over, we could go George Fraser, on and on and on. All of these are examples of injustices. When we talk about white privilege, a lot of white people get offended, but let's go back and understand that the Constitution describes us as being 3/5 human. So we have always had to fight for humanity. We're still trying to make up that last 2/5. And that inequity of how we are seen and how we often see ourselves, not just how you see us, but how we often see ourselves, has left a deep scar on us like a child that's been molested. And similarly to that molestation, one of the things that gives me great gratification about what I see on the streets now with blacks and whites and browns marching together is that up until this point, we have not been believed. And anybody who works with molested people understands that worse than the molestation itself, or equally as bad, is the difficulty often the victims have in being believed by the other parent or by the school or by anybody. For the last 200 or some years, every time we would try to tell you what was going on, we were not believed. We were given names like race baiters. We were given names like haters, and you don't love your country because you bowed a knee, and I'm so insulted that you could bend your knee. And then this police officer bends his knee, and I put up a picture of him bending his knee and Colin Kaepernick bending his knee, and I want to know which one is worse. If you can be that enraged about somebody who did a peaceful demonstration, just trying to tell you, hey, we're over here being molested on the street. It's not that. And let's be clear, Tony, we are not saying that all of our people are right or good, don't make mistakes, and don't need to be arrested. That's not true at all. We all know that's not true. What we are saying is we are people too, and we should not be tried and executed on the sidewalk. This notion of trying and executing us on the sidewalk and going away and having coffee and donuts it makes you so disgusted and so angry. And how do I convince my children of that other 2/5 of humanity that has been compromised in the country that we love, when every day they wake up to illustrations that my parents thought were gone with Dr. King? And here we are again, singing the same songs, even in the same key that Dr. King sung them in when I was a little boy, watching on a screen that looked like a bifocal lens. The reality today is that we have to grapple with this, and it is not just we have to change the way we vote. We have to change. We need the support of CEOs to stop funding candidates who do not have a serious Black agenda to bring up equality and righteousness and justice. Do not fund them just because you get a tax advantage. We need CEOs who will create job opportunities for returning citizens, because our criminal justice system is rigged. And once it has been rigged, we come out to a rigged system where we can't get an apartment, we can't get a place to stay, and we can't get a job. And we have no training, and we've been locked up for years and sometimes executed by the criminal justice system, not just on the street, but in the electric chair, in the gas chamber, lethal injection, and oops, I got it wrong doesn't get us back. We need people to recognize that turning us over to a system that denies us that other 2/5 of humanity and equality is like turning us over to the slave masters that we were running from in the first place. This is real for me. I grew up going to colored bathrooms and drinking from colored water fountains and watching my father go to the back door of restaurants to get something to eat.